the thing that's missing, I feel like, in a lot of the conversations is to understand that what's happening in Israel is a proxy conflict between Iran and the United States. And
what does Iran want?
Ultimately what Iran wants is a Shia Crescent, something they've been after for a long time.
Is it ideological in nature? Is it power in nature?
It's power and landmass. It really is a caliphate.
I don't know what a caliphate is.
A Islamic homeland that stretches beyond Iran, right? And is Shia Islam in nature, not Sunni Islam, which is the predominant Islam throughout the Khalijian Arabic speaking states. So that's really what Iran wants. And they struggle to get that. And the largest counterbalance to Iran isn't the United States, it's Saudi Arabia. So when you actually hone in on the Middle East, the two big powers like counterbalancing each other are Saudi Arabia and Iran. The United States is just an outside player.
Saudi's a lot bigger than Iran, though, by GDP.
A lot bigger by GDP, a lot bigger by landmass. However, the breadbasket of the Middle East is Iran. The breadbasket of that's so significant, it means that UAE and Oman and Jordan and Saudi Arabia all list Iran as an enemy, but they all get their agriculture from Iran. The cucumbers, the fresh fruit, the vegetables, it's a carve out so that they can continue to have agricultural trade with Iran. Another thing that people don't realize is that there's carve outs all the time.
That is the power of economics.
That's the power of economics.
Because Iran then could just choke them all off.
Correct.
But they want the money.
Correct. Iran wants some form of income and revenue.
Yeah.
And they've been sanctioned in so many ways. So it's just, to your point about needing an economic and a religious solution, I don't fully disagree, but I would prioritize economics first. Because if you can incentivize people economically, economics runs the world.
Oh, for sure.
If you can incentivize people economically to cooperate, they will find a way for their religions to also cooperate, right? They will find a way to say, hey, you know what? We all come from the same Papa Bear. We all came from everybody, all the nations, they come from us. Like, let's get along. Let's do that, right? That's something that France can't say. That's something the United States can't say. The United States definitely can't say that we come from anybody. We're the bastard children of everybody. We just flocked here, right? So there's absolutely a solution there ideologically. What isn't there is a solution economically. And it's not just about economically incentivizing the Palestinians. It's also about economically incentivizing the Israelis. It takes two sets of economic stimulus, two sets of economic benefits, and even better if they can be economic benefits that are commingled, right? So the more success in Israel, the more success in Palestine, the more success in Palestine, the more success in Israel, right? Create a sense of independence among them. Unfortunately, creating independent partners is something the United States is very bad at. We, since World War II, have specialized in creating dependent partners. That's why NATO doesn't really like us very much anymore. That's why France and Spain and Germany are actively opponents of the United States in NATO, because they realize that what we've really done is made all of Europe dependent on the United States for their technology, for their trade, for their financial solvency. And now the same thing it's difficult for the United States to adopt a different sort of policy than essentially economic bullying. And that's something we're going to have to learn how to do, right? It's something that I think an old generation of capitalists believed that you had to be the biggest in order to be safe. What I think the new era of capitalists is learning is that we can be innovative, successful, financially independent, financially solvent. We can be a lot of things and still be totally safe, because it's only when you're competing for the top space that you're really at risk. Nobody really cares about everybody else who's just, even people who are thriving. People overlook all the people who are thriving. They focus on the very poor and they focus on the very rich. So, I mean, I hope to one day run a $50 million business. And in the eyes of business, that's still small. I think the actual cutoff for small business is $45 million a year. Think about that. You can run a $35 million business and still be classified as a small business. Yeah. I'm not trying to compete with $100 billion businesses, or I'm not trying to compete up. I want to make an impact. I want to build wealth. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to leave a legacy for my children. Much like many entrepreneurs, we want to make a splash, but we don't need to make the biggest splash. The United States I believe that the United States is still the best option of all the bad options. We're the best bad option for how the world should lean through superpower dominance. Until a better solution presents itself, I'm going to continue investing in American primacy. That's why my company is an American company, and I couldn't be prouder to pay American taxes, right? Because my business is helping to fund a stronger America. That makes me very proud. It makes me very happy. But there's plenty of Indians and Singaporeans and Thais who are also very proud that their business is building their country.
Proxy wars. How serious is this? There are days where I wake up and I feel like, no, for real, like we are a couple errant missiles from this escalating, and World War III like kicks off in earnest. And the way that I see that playing out is if Iran comes out of the shadows and says, you've gone too far, like we have to step in and do something, and then America has to step in to protect Israel to make good on their promises, and then China starts watching that and goes, the US has drained its surpluses in Ukraine and now in Israel. Now's the time for us to move on Taiwan. They move on Taiwan, and now all hell has broken loose, and you legitimately have a world war. And this is one where, man, I'm a layperson that can draw a pretty believable path to how we get there. And I can only imagine somebody that actually is, I forget what you called it, like read in or whatever, like they're getting like the intelligent briefs, be like, yeah, that's one of the 17 ways that this could escalate and really pop off. Am I falling into conspiracy? Or are we really at a tenuous moment?
We are really at a tenuous moment. That is a yes, hard yes. We are at a tenuous moment. However, what I would say is that what you're falling into is not conspiracy. It's something we call catastrophizing. You're paving the road catastrophic step by catastrophic step, meaning that everybody turns to the most destructive of all solutions before taking a previous step, right? So, for example, for another country to attack for another state actor to attack the sovereignty of the United States is something nobody wants to do. The deterrence that the United States has through their military, through their economic power, through their reach, that what we call a deterrent is so powerful, it prevents people from taking that catastrophic step. The other thing you have to account for is that not every culture approaches conflict the way that America approaches conflict. We are a warring culture. So we're like, blow the shit out of them. We're going to bomb, we're going to kill, we're going to shoot, we're going to get boots on the ground. We need tanks, we need rifles, we need everything, right? Sun Tzu does not operate that way. The entire Chinese Politburo, the whole Chinese PLA doesn't operate that way. They're not a boots on the ground, kick them in, whatever else. They are a long, slow death by 1,000 cuts. We are a hacksaw, chainsaw, shoot them up, cut them up country, right? So you've also got Iran in there. You've got Russia in there. You've got Israel in there. You've got Saudi Arabia in there. You've got France, Germany, the UK, all these other big players. They're all in there with their own take on how conflict should escalate and how conflict should be carried out. So when you catastrophize, you take the presumptive path that everybody leaps to the most catastrophic decision, whereas you have to bake into that some level of probability. The highest probability is that no country will attack the sovereignty of the United States. Highest probability, right? Nobody will attack the sovereignty of the United States. So you and me are safe inside American borders. That does not mean that Americans are safe outside of American borders. But then you start getting into the realm of extremism and targeted violence against Americans because of ideological or other purposes. That becomes proxy, right? So now when Americans are attacked in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, simply because they're American, and they're attacked by Congolese who are funded by, you name the country, you name Russia, North Korea, like whatever, Iran. Now that becomes murky. Murky is exactly what the world wants when it comes to conflict with the United States. Because if it's murky, the United States has a hard time justifying any kind of response that goes state to state, because there's no smoking gun, right? It becomes just difficult enough. There's plausible deniability. And that's exactly what you're seeing play out here. So again, going back to the whole idea, when you reference World War III happening, when most people reference World War III happening, what they're actually talking about is a nuclear war similar to how World War II ended. Wars evolve like people evolve. And if anything, if you've seen the evolution of technology, you can imagine how much more advanced World War III will be than World War II. All wars, from civil to World War II, were all fought, Vietnam and beyond, were all fought over economics. So if there's a more economically viable way to execute warfare, that is how people will execute warfare. Proxy wars are a very economically viable way to execute wars. Economic wars are a very economically viable way to execute wars. When the United States cut off Russian bank accounts as part of their sanctions against Russia, and they cut off access to Russian funds that were denominated in euros and dollars, that was an economic warfare move. When China floods the market with US dollars and buys yuan or renminbi off the market to change their valuation, that's an act of economic warfare. That is conflict that is so much more cheaper and viable and creates less stress and public response than actually sending your citizens to die at the end of a bullet or a rocket launch, right? So we have to accept that the probability is much higher that we will continue to see increasing proxy conflict, increasing economic conflict, and solutions other than what we call interstate conflict, or conflict between two sovereign nation states. It's very surprising what Russia did in Ukraine, very surprising, because interstate war like that has almost been like eradicated. The last time that a country invaded another sovereign country was when the United States invaded Afghanistan in 2003. Right? There's 20-something years where no country had invaded another country. Lots of civil war, but no interstate. So lots of intra-state war, civil war, but no interstate war. So it was a huge turn away from popular military doctrine. But, Putin was playing certain odds. And I think what we're all discovering now is what he really cares about is Eastern Ukraine, where, the predominance of their energy flow goes through. And that's what he's got right now. So I would say that if you take the catastrophizing off the table and you look at probabilities, we will continue to see more proxy wars in more third world countries where the United States has to fund one side and China or Russia or Iran have to fund the opposite side. And they'll keep vying for influence because economically speaking, the country with the most markets to expand into will be the future economic powerhouse of the world. And economic power is what becomes the investment for military power. And that's why the United States is dominant. We've had the economic power to invest in a modern, large military. Only country who's competing with us is China. And the only reason they even have a chance to compete with us is because for 20 years, we were heads down focusing on the global war on terror. China didn't participate in the global war on terror. They spent 20 years with their heads up, stealing secrets and building infrastructure, so that when we finally looked up, we realized, oh shit, they're growing fast and we got to change something.